It is an enormous honor for me to introduce to our viewers, our friends, a person that I consider not only a source of inspiration, but really a person who inspired me to love America. A person who taught me journalism. A person who led our community media by creating Russian TV Network of America. A person who's loved and respected by hundreds of thousands of Russian immigrants all over this wonderful country. I can only tell you, Mark, that I forever remember our first meeting when you offered me to join RTN, and it was so inspirational for me. I remember your story about your grandparents. I know that your grandfather from the city of Minsk, am I right?
Yes.
And so much I can speak about you, but once again, you opened my eyes on what does it mean to be American and what does it mean to be a Jew in America. So when my community, your community, our community is confused, we live in a free country, we definitely condemn the murder. We definitely condemn racism. There is no room for racism within the Jewish community. And at the same time, my people and your viewers and listeners for so many years are so scared. They are here in Brighton Beach, Manhattan Beach, Flatbush, I'm talking about Brooklyn, and all over the place. They're just scared for their lives and for their property. And they're confused about what's going on. They maybe don't understand the pain of these rioters. Why are they rioting? What are they saying to us? And how we as Jews respond to that?
Well, first of all, you know, it is wonderful that you're giving me a chance, Aryeh, again, to be in some way in contact with a community that was, you know, a major, major factor of my life. And there were so many people who I love dearly and I miss because I'm not doing RTN anymore. And I carry them with me. I carry you with me all the time. We're always shaped by the people who we love and who give us so much love themselves. And that's what I experienced when I ran RTN for many, 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 many years. Two separate times I was president of the Russian Television Network of America, created it with Michael Pravin, and then resurrected it with Zhenya Lvov, who recently passed away of blessed memory. Both of them have passed away, really a terrible shame. And I miss them both very much. But there were so many people in the American Russian community, the Russian speaking community, the RTN community, who were precious in my life. You know, we used to have the annual gala, the New Year's gala at National Restaurant. So you were there. You know, Mark and Sophia were such gracious hosts to us. But it was not just national. It's, you know, everything about the people of RTN and the viewers. They were an integral. They will always be in my heart, and they were a major piece of who I was. And although I'm doing Jewish television now, in some way it is an outgrowth of RTN. So I hope that every now and then someone who used to watch RTN finds JBS, the Jewish Broadcasting Service, and watches. And you were a dear, 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 not simply a friend, which you were. You were a beloved friend, and you always will be. You were a colleague, and you helped me create Jewish programming on JBS, and you and I will never forget the Seder we did, Passover program we did on RTN together. But you also, you did your own series for me every single week where you were teaching our people what it is to be a Jew in this crazy American experience. So you always have access to me, and I will always do anything I can to help you and the Russian-speaking American community, which is predominantly Jewish, not 100% Jewish, but is predominantly Jewish. And I'm thrilled anytime I can help in any way. So you can always call upon me. I want you to tell me first, you used two words which are so interesting to me. You said that the community is scared and confused. I want you to define it as simply as you can. What's scaring them? What's confusing them? And what can I say that will clarify? I mean, I can explain to you, Aryeh, from my perspective, what we are experiencing in America. And if you want, I'll begin there and then we'll come to what's scary and what's confusing. The confusing part is the easy part to address. And I'm sure your audience, those of you who are joining us on Facebook, whatever, I think you know most of the facts. The fact is that a Minneapolis policeman brutally, needlessly, meanly murdered an African-American man named George Floyd. That is beyond dispute. And what happened in the aftermath of that murder, which was, you carry a phone, you're carrying a camera with you everywhere you go. We can do nothing anymore without somebody taking our picture and taking a video. So everything about it was captured on video. America had to watch this brutal, evil, angry, cruel act. And what it felt like to the African American community, and I want your audience to understand this, what it felt like to every African American was that this was a hate crime. This was a racist crime. This was a crime against an African American, not against an American, not against somebody who could have been white. The implication, the feeling that African Americans had was, if this guy had been white, the Minneapolis policeman never would have sat on his neck for 8 minutes and 45 seconds, would never have killed him, not killed, murdered him. That's what the African American community feels. They may not be right, Aryeh. It could be that this policeman is just a psychopath, is a disturbed, insane, sick human being. And he would have done it to a white guy as much as he would have done it to an African American. But it doesn't matter. What matters is how was experienced, how African Americans felt. And we know this as Jews. Very often, somebody can do something and we feel it is anti-Semitic. Most of the time, we're right, Aryeh. It's amazing what antenna people develop. So the probability is we know when somebody is saying or doing something anti-Semitic, even if they say, no, I didn't, no, I could have done it to anybody. Yeah, you did it to a Jew. You said it to a Jew. Well, the same thing is true for African Americans. They have an antenna. And it looked like it was racist. It felt like it was racist. There's a famous joke in America. If it looks like a duck and walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck. And that's what the African American community experienced. This was to them blatant racism. And it's not, sadly, it's not the first case. A white policeman has murdered an African American who was unarmed at the time, was no threat to anybody. George Floyd was on the ground and was already handcuffed, and then he was murdered. So the African American sees that there are other instances when, sadly, this has happened. And therefore, the African American community feels that there is larger racism at work here. So much so that it has sparked, and the word spark is it has ignited protests within the African American community and within the American community as a whole. If you watch the protest rallies, there are as many whites, there may be more white people than black people, because there is inside America a goodness where whites, non-African American, where all people have empathy and feeling for the feelings of anyone who is oppressed, anyone who is beaten, anyone who is hurt. And by the way, at times, people are oblivious. They're oblivious to Jews. They're oblivious to immigrants from the former Soviet Union. They say and do stupid things. I documented that on RTN all the time. I would talk to Michael Provin about that all the time. How Jews would treat Russian Jews, not Jews from the former Soviet Union, but Russian Jews, with a certain kind of condescension, as if American Jews, we were cultured. The Jews from these Russian Jews, who were they? It didn't matter that most of them had not most, but a large percentage had PhDs. You had professors, scientists, doctors, authors, and you had lovely people. They were immigrants. They didn't speak English. By the way, very often, if you don't speak English, Americans think you're ignorant. In most European countries, the people there speak 7 languages. Americans speak 1 language. We're the ignorant ones, but we look down. American Jews tended to look down on the Russian Jewish immigrant. And I would be so angry at that on RTN. So people sometimes are stupid. And they just don't notice, and they're too busy, and they're too worried about their own lives. By the way, that's true of Jews from the former Soviet Union as well. There are many times the Russian community, the Russian-speaking immigrant community, is not sensitive enough to other communities. They can be racist, by the way. There has been in the community, the Russian-speaking community from the former Soviet Union, a racism against black people. And I don't believe that they're inherently evil or racist people. But at times, we say and do really mean things or stupid things. But when Americans face or are confronted with or understand that other people, other Americans are in pain, most of the time Americans are sympathetic. And what you have here is many Americans who are sympathetic to the feelings of African Americans and the racism that does still exist in America today. There is racism in America today, and it should be rooted out wherever it is, and it should be brought to an end. And that's what Americans feel. White Americans, brown Americans, black Americans, Russian Americans, none of us believe that America should be a racist country in any way. And that is what has fueled the protests. But, and there's a huge but here, Aryeh, that doesn't mean that the way in which the African American leadership is framing the problem, describing the problem, is accurate. And that is something I've been speaking about on JBS now almost every day. I am sensitive to the fact that there is racism in America. I believe there are racists in America and in the former Soviet Union and in France and in England and in Germany and in Switzerland and in Israel. Why? Because racism is part of humanity. Sadly, there are racists, and Aryeh, there always will be. Civilization is a check on racism. Civilization says to the racist, knock it off. And the Jewish tradition has a very interesting insight. Aryeh, it doesn't matter what a person feels. If somebody doesn't like a Jew, I don't care if they don't like a Jew. Just don't do something that's anti-Semitic. You don't like Israel? I don't care. Just don't do anything to stop American foreign aid to Israel. Don't do anything that would hurt a Jew or would hurt Israel. Think anything you want of a Jew. Feel any way you want about me, but don't hurt me. The Jewish tradition says you are never held responsible for anything you feel, wish, or dream. Your dreams, your wishes, your feelings are your own, as long as you never act on them. If you act on a mean dream, then you're a racist. It's not about how people feel. Most Americans abhor racism, even if they have racist feelings themselves. They abhor racist laws. They abhor any racist system. America is not a racist country. America does not have racist laws. There is no systemic racism in America. And there's no systemic racism in police departments. There may be bad cops. You know what? There are bad doctors. There are bad lawyers. There are bad businessmen. There even are, every now and then, there's a bad rabbi. But America as a whole is not racist. Americans are not racist. And American police departments are not racist. There may be a bad cop, but when the bad cop is identified, every single time he's thrown off the force. And if he does something illegal, if he commits murder, as this guy did in Minneapolis, he's going to jail. And people should know these numbers, In 2019, a year ago, 1,004 people were killed by a policeman. There were 1,000, by the way, that is a relatively small number for a nation in a year, but 1,004 people, 1,004 people were killed by policemen. In the overwhelming number of cases, the people killed by policemen were in the middle of committing a crime. We don't hold policemen guilty for killing people trying to stop crime. But if a policeman kills somebody not in the middle of a crime, that's problematic. How many times did that happen in 2019? Of the 1,004 times a policeman killed somebody, Aryeh, it happened 40 times. There were only 40 times all last year a policeman killed somebody who was unarmed, who did not have a gun themselves. Okay. How many of those 40 were black? How many black Americans, African Americans, were killed by a policeman who didn't have a gun? And the answer is 10. All of last year, only 10 African Americans were killed by policemen even though they did not have a gun. By the way, 19 white men were killed by policemen even though they didn't have a gun. But only 10, and of the 10, 5 of them had other weapons or were beating up a policeman. And only 3 were shot by policemen running away, meaning they were not trying to hurt a policeman. Only 3. And in each of those 3 cases, the policeman was arrested and put on trial. That is not a racist America. That is not a racist police system. And the pity, the sadness, and then we come to the fear you're talking about within our community. The pity is that there have been people, large numbers of people, who have used peaceful protests against the system, and the system is not racist. This doesn't mean I don't appreciate the feelings of African Americans. And I want to address those feelings, but I don't ever want to buy into or repeat or be part of the lie that America is racist. America is not racist. American police departments are not racist. And sometimes cops do stupid things and brutal things. And it's really smart not to be a wise guy with a cop. But cops are not looking to kill black people. There's no genocide against African Americans in America. What a heinous, ludicrous thing to say. But the pity is, the tragedy is, that there are people who don't want to correct America or improve America. They want to tear down America. They hate America. And they have used this as an opportunity to burn, to destroy, to loot. I hope your audience knows what the word loot in English means. To rob, to murder policemen in cold blood, shoot them in the head, and to try to destroy America. And tragically, in America, there are those Americans, normally called liberals or progressives, who think they must support the rioters, those inflicting violence on other Americans. They burn the small businesses of their own people, African American businessmen who have poured their entire life savings, their entire life's dreams into a pawn shop, into a little store where they sell radios. And these thugs, criminals, pretending to be protesters? No, 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 no. These are villains. These are criminals. They've destroyed the businesses of their own people and of white people and of Jews. And it is unacceptable. And any television channel which tries to minimize the evil or to call the rioters, those doing violence, calling them protesters, is an outrage. It's an insult to every peaceful protester. It's an insult to every American. It's an insult to every American Jew. It's an insult to every peace-loving member of the Russian American community. As far as fear is concerned, we have seen riots in Brooklyn. We've seen rioters go into Macy's in the middle of Manhattan. But Brooklyn has been a scene of the riots. And I understand if any of our people in the Russian American community are frightened. And I would be lying if I didn't say they didn't have a right to be frightened. Anybody living anywhere near these riots, you have a right to be frightened. Whether you're Russian American, whether you're an Italian American, whether you're an Irish American, whether you're an African American, you have every right to be frightened. That's different than being confused. And it's different than ever thinking the issue is simple or that America is bad and racist. That's the biggest lie being told today. What I want to tell your audience is that it's coming to an end. The riots are coming to an end. The police, who are there to protect us, not to hurt us, they will protect us. They will protect you in Brooklyn, in Queens, wherever you're living, in Florida, in Seattle, wherever you're living, they will protect. And then I hope that people of goodwill, people of conscience, of morality, of decency, will tell the truth. The truth is, there's some racism here in America and we should deal with it. But it's not systemic. And it's not about the police. It's about human nature, Aryeh. It's about the Yetzer Tov and the Yetzer Hara that's in every single human being, the genius of our tradition. Anyway, al regel achat, that's what I have to say today. If you want to talk about this more, I'm happy to join you anytime you invite me.
A brief question.
I want you to send my love to everyone you see. You tell them, Mark Golub still loves every one of you, and he misses you and every one of you.
Mark, I extend my gratitude for speaking. Of course, just maybe the thought, I totally agree with you that we come from a different country. We did not know the African American community before. And maybe on one hand, as you spoke, I thought maybe me as Еврейский Мир, the Jewish World newspaper, to actually make a Zoom online demonstration of support for the peaceful protesters. But at the same time, we need to be careful, as you said, not to claim that America is racist, not to support the criminals. And my community wants to arm itself. We have people here in Brooklyn that they are, they want to walk on the streets and just make sure that riot is not going to come here. And you said that police will protect us. Do
Yes,
we have information that we have from now on tonight, or will it be a different attitude of the city administration or the NYPD to what's going on?
The NYPD has done marvelous work. They've been hampered a bit, but it's been taken off them. And you will see, this is about to die out. And it will be something, it'll be part of history. What a history we're living in. Anyway, Aryeh, I would talk to you forever if I could.
We'll continue.
I have somewhere I need to go.
Yes.
Call me and put me on Zoom anytime.
Thank you so
and
much.
I love you. All right.
We love
By the
you.
way, what you said, Ochin Horosho, you said it perfectly. We will support peaceful protesters. We will not buy into even their message. America is not racist. And most of all, we will condemn any violence ever done in any name. Violence is not the way you move society forward. Violence destroys and corrupts. You and I, and hopefully all of our Russian American community, will not participate in destruction or corruption. I love you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. До свидания to you. All the best.
Thank you.
We want to see you again. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Be well. Thank you.
Thank you.